Hello, everybody that is watching the recording of our webinar today. I know that there's quite a few people that are watching. I'm just going to share my screen. There's going to be some people that are watching this in replay and who weren't able to make it today. So this recording is for you. Hello to everybody that is joining us now, just joining us now. We may get people dropping in from as we start this training. So if you hear the little noises or the little beeps, that's all that it is. But I will ask that keep yourselves on mute. If you do want to ask any questions, please just drop it in the chat and I will answer any questions that you have. If you're watching this recording, please feel free to email me with any questions that you have in relation to anything that comes up today. Make sure you've got a pen and paper handy because, just adjust my mic there, because I'm going to take you through some real practical tools to be able to manage your time. And what we want to do is be able to apply that into a digital space. So what I'm going to cover off on today is to be able to look at how we can identify areas of distraction. Email is this nasty little evil time stealer and it makes us get easily distracted. We're going to learn how to focus your attention in the right areas, develop some stronger prioritization skills so that you can manage your emails and manage your tasks and understand how to use the categories feature within Microsoft to be able to manage your emails. And I'm going to introduce you to some of the advanced features for automation and prioritization. So there is a little bit of technical stuff in this webinar, but of course, in the time that we have, I can't go into too much detail, but I do want to share with you how you can optimize your email better to be able to save yourself time. And typically, I will save people 2 hours in their day simply by changing the way they manage their emails, which is crazy, right? That's so much time. If you've done a webinar with me before, I will often share this diagram with you to create a bigger picture and a better understanding about all the things that we have to deal with in our working day and the complexities that we deal with. So for us to be adaptive and resilient and to be able to roll with the punches and deal with the challenges every day, we need to consider all things. So I'm talking to you about time management today, but what I will say to you is that if you're stressed, it makes it really hard to manage your time. And if you can't manage your time, then you become stressed. They go hand in hand. But all of these other things impact upon our capacity to concentrate and focus and manage our time. So, for example, if you're not getting a good sleep at night, if you've got things that are impacting upon your emotional, mental, spiritual, physical well-being, it's going to make it hard for you to concentrate and manage your time. Leadership is, I've had people say to me, particularly women, I will say, that say, oh, I'm not a leader. We're all leaders at some point. We're all having to take the be the leader in the front, take the first step, be the guidance that people need. And so if we don't manage that effectively, impacts upon our time, don't communicate effectively, set some boundaries, push back, all of those things, assert yourself. And the resilience is about being adaptive. When you've got information and you can analyze information, you can make easier decisions. You can adapt a lot easier. And what I'm going to share with you today assists in that process for you to be more adaptive and more resilient. It supports you to be more resilient. So you can see all of these things like communication. We're talking about emails. That's a form of communication. All of those things impact upon your capacity to manage your time, right? So, but I've only got a short period of time, so I'm really just zeroing in on this. And once again, this is what I see. If you've been to my webinars before, this is what I will often talk about in terms of how people present to me. And it's those top three that they're feeling overwhelmed, overworked, and I'm just over this. I'm over it. I can't do this anymore. Too many emails. I can't even look at it. So we can feel negligent. We can feel like we don't have a grasp on things. We're not in control and we're running from fire to fire. You shouldn't be feeling like that. When you go to work, you should feel inspired. You should feel motivated. You should be able to make decisions quickly and be adaptive and be strategic, making decisions about what you need to focus your attention on and what you don't. And then you become the person that everybody comes to. This is where that leadership thing steps into place. People look to you for advice and direction and recommendations. And ultimately, I don't want you to feel out of control and chaotic. I want you to feel a sense of control and feel like you've got a handle on all the challenges that are coming to you from day to day. So here's the thing. What I will say to you, the number one thing that's the hardest thing for people to do when implementing this email system, it's not all the technical things, it's not all the tools, it's not the advanced features. The hardest thing for them in adopting this system is changing habit. And when we're stressed, we resort back to what's familiar and comfortable. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's helpful or supportive for us. And think about it. When you're really stressed, some people like to go and raid the fridge, have a little alcoholic bevy. We go to those things that are comforting and familiar. So I just want to flag with you that what you will find most challenging about this process is having to operate differently. I give people the analogy that if you've ever been in a car, driving a car, and the wipers are on the other side to the indicator to what you're normally used to, and you have to kind of change your brain and your habits to do something differently. If you try to write with the other hand, it feels really awkward. It will feel a little bit like that. So that's the hardest thing about this whole process in terms of improving your time management is changing your habits. I'm going to reference a person a lot today by the name of David Allen. I'll share a picture and an image of him in just a moment, but I want to talk to you about open loops and touch points. Open loops are in Email is a perfect breeding ground for this. In email, we are constantly overhandling, over processing things. We're touching them with our brain over and over and over and over and over. This image here is if you've ever placed a mirror in front of another mirror, you would have got something that looks like this. This is actually video feedback. So if I turned my webinar camera around onto my monitor, it would create this image. It's the camera recording what's on the monitor is showing what's on the camera is showing what's on the monitor, and it's this infinite loop. It just goes on forever and ever. Well, our emails can feel like that. Sometimes we've got an inbox that just goes on and on and on and on forever and ever and ever. And we keep going up and down, looking for that email, looking for something we've missed, and we're touching it with our brain every time. And here's the thing. Research shows that we have a quota of how many decisions we can make in the day. And once we've used up that quota, our brain really starts to slow down. And it's why people like Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, what's his name? The Australian guy, Burris, I can't remember Mark Burris, I think, who did Yellow Brick Road. Like all these big famous entrepreneurs, they wear the same clothes every day. You'll notice if you see them speaking on stage, if you see old footage of Steve Jobs, he always had that polo neck. So the theory is Mark Burris, he wears a black t-shirt every time. The theory is they've got so many important decisions to make in the day, they eliminate a useless one, which is deciding what you're going to wear for the day. Personally, I think that's the most important thing. But that's the theory behind that. So every time you go up and down your inbox, that endless loop, You're using up just a little bit of your decision quota. Will I look at that email or won't I? Do I need to action that today or don't I? You're making a decision. And the more decisions you're having to make, the more you're exhausting yourself. It is why when you, at the end of the day, you feel absolutely fatigued, but it's not like you've run a marathon or done anything extremely physical. It's because you've exhausted yourself mentally, and that's really fatiguing. So we want to eliminate how many times you're handling things. We want to stop having to hold ideas in your brain. This is David Allen, and he wrote this amazing book called Getting Things Done. A lot of what I will share with you is based on his theory. And what I love about his theories of time management is it's really about just keeping it simple. If it's simple, you'll adopt it, you'll do it. If it's too complex, it's too hard. It's why I see so many people saying, oh, I've tried all these tools. I've tried Asana and Monday.com and Trello and all of these things, Evernote. Oh, and it's just too hard. It was just too confusing and too complex. The beautiful thing is you have at your fingertips the most sophisticated task management tool right where your email lives. And if you think about it, most of the work we have to deal with comes to us via email, doesn't it? Like we get requests for things we need to complete or things that we need to do. So let's just keep it simple. And what I love about what David Allen says is your brain is a machine for having ideas to solve complex problems. It's not for holding information. We want to get things out of your brain and utilize a system where it comes back to us at a better time and trust that system is there for us. I'm going to play a video for you now. I'm just going to stop sharing so I can prioritize this for audio playback. This is a video of somebody who some of you might, for those of you in Darwin, some of you might know this person. She's just sharing a story about how she was able to, the difference it made for her in changing her email management and the impact that it made on a quality of life, basically, in her work. So I'm just going to share that little video with you. Let me know if you can't hear it. It should
My
play.
main pain point was emails, and I was getting 60 plus emails every single day.
And I found that sometimes I'd be like a hamster on the hamster wheel, just running really fast, hoping to get somewhere.
And literally just being overwhelmed with the amount of information that was coming through. Now, not all the emails I needed to act upon, but they all needed to be read, and every single ping and email that came through was a distraction that took me away from the other work that I actually had to do. I just felt like I was drowning in emails.
You've maybe talked with people about it or what works for them, but you've tried those techniques and it doesn't work for you. You're not somebody who can get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to beat everyone else at home and get things done. That there's realistic strategies that you can discuss and try, but so still feel that sense of success and accountability, but without a sense of judgment.
It has been transformational for my business, and fundamentally it's been transformational for my well-being.
This email system, oh my gosh, it's just totally changed my life. I live by it with my work.
I feel that I'm in a better place to achieve those things, to identify the priorities and to also be kinder to myself.
I feel like it's actually given me a life back, and a really great management tool that has supported the work that I do to be really successful.
I've now got more order, as Barbara says, in the chaos that was my life and my schedule. When I feel like, where to next? I know that I can come back to her systems to get laser focus, to create time for that laser focus, and then to act.
Okay. It's a bit promo-y, that video, but I did want to share that with you so that you can see the impact that I thought it was just one person speaking, but there was a few people speaking there, to sharing their story about the difference it makes to their stress just to get those emails under control, to have that. Peter talked about, I always talk about order out of chaos. And so, and a lot of people resonate with that. It feels really chaotic sometimes with our emails, all of this stuff that we're trying to wrap our head around. And the stress levels just increase when it feels like that. So when you've got that sense of control, it just gives you a bit of breathing space, a bit of So how I communicate this to people when you think about all the tasks you have to deal with, we have information now coming to us from everywhere, don't we? We have a lot of people, and pop in the chat if you like. I'm really curious to know whether people have, if you use Teams at work, or if you use Slack or something like that, or whether you use Messenger, what kind of tools you use to communicate with people outside of email, because that's obviously something that impacts upon my team. We use Microsoft Teams to communicate. But that's more information, right? Where people are making requests and asking you to do things, and you've got to track that somewhere. A lot of people have a notebook still where they write down their to-do list and their task list. Some people are using those external apps or programs. Cecilia's got, wow, WhatsApp, Messenger, phone. Margie uses Teams in her organization. Yeah, look, Margie, that's really common now that you'll see more people doing that. So they're just all these conveyor belts. This is like WhatsApp, Teams, emails, my notebook with all my notes in it. Maybe it's some minutes from a meeting I've attended, Post-it notes around my laptop. These are all these different conveyor belts of screaming tasks and information coming at you, which you're trying to juggle. You're trying to catch these tasks and not let something hit the floor. Does that resonate with people? Do you relate to that, where you've just got all this information coming in from everywhere? How do we streamline it? How do we create a process or a system where we rely on one kind of place, where we see, what is it that I need to action? What is it that I need to do today? It's not always possible when you're working for large organizations, but if we can limit the amount of conveyor belts that you have to look at, then that's going to make it less stressful. What we want to do, and this is something sometimes what I find is people are resistant to, they kind of adopt this but not wholeheartedly, is having a place where you put things that you don't need to attend to right now, and they come back to you at the right time. The biggest mistake I see people making with time management is that things that actually don't need to be actioned today or tomorrow, they could actually wait a reasonable time. People are reluctant to let them go because these things are actually very important, and they're scared that if they let them go, they'll forget about them, and then that's going to come back to bite them later on. So if you've got a really strong system where you can let go of things and trust that they will come back to you at the perfect time, you'll be far more efficient in your time management and your prioritization. So this is David Allen's quote: a time and a place for everything. So everything has a time when you will attend to it, and you have a place where it lives to come back to you at that right time. That's his philosophy. He also breaks it down into this really, if you think about it, this makes sense, right? This is the process that we go through in managing our day-to-day tasks. We collect information, whether it's Teams, whether it's Messenger, wherever the text messages, wherever that information is coming from, it's coming in. And we have ways of collecting that information. The next step, however, is to process it. That is where I go, do I need to action that information or not? Can I throw that further down the conveyor belt to come back at me later on, or do I need to do it now? And how do I determine what category that belongs to, what project that belongs to, what person that belongs to. And we'll talk about that a bit later on. It's these ones in the middle. This bit's easy. We can create lots of baskets to collect information, and reviewing it and doing it is easy. It's this bit in the middle that gets us stuck. It's being very clear about how we process that information and how we organize it onto the conveyor belt or into the different boxes, if I use that analogy. If you remember nothing else from today, I want you to remember this one here. This is probably the simplest thing that you can do, but makes a significant impact into the way that you operate, your day-to-day operation, and how you manage your time. And that is to be able to separate out the things you need to action and the things that you don't. Because if you think about your inbox with emails, you've got lots of emails in there that you need to action, and some of them you don't. You're just sitting on, hanging on to, you haven't done anything with them. But when you go up and down that inbox looking for things, you're looking at things that actually don't need to be actioned, as well as all the things that do need to be actioned. The best thing you can do as a starting point is to separate those things that need to be actioned and those things that don't, because the actionable things have a time and a date to them. They need to be done by a particular time. Everything else is important information. It's reference information. It's things that you might need to go and look at some point in time, but it doesn't have a date where you need to attend to it. So what I'm going to show you now, this is where I want you to get your pen and paper handy. So pull up a blank piece of paper, and I want you to draw a line down the page and across the page. Some of you may have seen this methodology, this time management theory. It is used by time management gurus everywhere because it works. It's very powerful, and it helps you become more mindful around how you're approaching your work, how you're prioritizing your tasks. And whenever I love quadrants because they're great mindfulness tools. And what I'm going to do, what you do with a quadrant, is you have headings up the top, the opposite down the bottom, headings on the left and the opposite on the right. So I'm going to show you how to lay that out. And this is a tool that you could utilize on a whiteboard, in a notebook if you wanted to. What I'm going to show you is how to apply it in the digital space. So here's how it works. We're going to put this heading up the top. If you want to write this down, top left, top right, you're writing the heading important. And then, so we're going to write the opposite down the bottom. So the opposite is not important. Yep. Okay, now we're going to, on the left-hand side, we're going to have, so top left, bottom left, you're going to write the word urgent. And then the opposite on the other side, not urgent on the top right and not urgent on the bottom right. So we're going to look at what kind of tasks sit within each of those quadrants. And you're going to say to me, well, surely if something is urgent, it's important. Not necessarily. And surely if something's really important, it's got to be urgent. You've got to do it straight away. Not necessarily. So I'm going to show you what fits within those quadrants. What I'm going to share with you is a recommended time frame for when these tasks should be completed, what kind of approach you should have. And there'll be a theme. There's also going to be a theme to each of these quadrants. There'll be a D word, a word that starts with the letter D. And this is how I want you to think about the approach that you take to these tasks. I'll also give you some examples of the kind of things that sit within each of those quadrants so you can get a feel for what you need to place in each of these. So let's have a look. This doesn't really matter, but as you go across, they become less urgent. As you go down, they become less important. But let's break it down. So in this quadrant, the urgent and important quadrant, I used to think as a time management coach, I used to think when I first started that this was the most important quadrant. This is the one that you have to focus all your attention on. The reality is, by the time things end up in this quadrant, it's too late to do any more. You have to be able to do it today or tomorrow. So that's the time frame I want you to write down, today or tomorrow. It's really urgent and it's really important. And the sort of thing that sits within this quadrant, if you want to write this down, crisis, deadlines, emergencies. That deadline is here. You have to do that thing now. And so there's only one approach you can take, and that's to do it. That's your D word, do it. I want you to think about this system. The analogy I use for this is it's like going into an emergency department. This is triaging your tasks. Now, if you think about it, in the emergency department, in the waiting room, all these people are coming in. Some people are on death's door. They've had a serious accident. Some people just have a headache. So we have to decide, not by the order that they came in, but by the sense of emergency or urgency, importance of whatever they're experiencing. And we assess them and make a decision, who goes first, who goes second, right? We're prioritizing them. So I want you to think about this system in the same way. This is the triaging system of all your tasks. So by the time it's here, it's too late. We can't triage it anymore. You just have to do it. It's hit that crisis point. Now, this is the evil one right here. This is the secret thief, this one. This is the one I spend the most time on with people, because this is that silent killer to your time management. These are the things that you go, oh my God, that is so important, but I don't need to do it now. I've got plenty of time. I'll do that when I've got time. So the sort of things that sit within this quadrant, if you want to write this down, are things like writing reports, doing proposals, completing application forms for your visa, for your holiday, or things like that. Touching base and connecting with important people. So it can be people in your personal life, it can be stakeholders, it can be clients. For those of you that work in the education space, it's checking in with your students. So really important, right? We all agree those kind of things are really important, but there's a deadline, but it's not urgent yet. I'll do that. I'll definitely do that because it's really important, but I'll do that when I've got time, because right now I'm really busy. But if we don't make time for it, it doesn't happen. Our calendars just get full. I use and the D word here, the D word is defer it. That's what I want you to write down. So that doesn't mean put it off. That means make time in the future for that thing. Hold space for it. I often say to people, if you've ever put a bucket on the lawn, the grass stops growing under that bucket, right? The grass grows up around that bucket. But if you pick up that bucket and move it somewhere else, the grass will grow there. It'll still grow, but you've held that space. And so I want you to think about that in your calendar. Pop those things into your calendar, make space for them, and you will fill up your calendar around it for sure. But if you need to, you can pick that up and move it somewhere else. But what's really important in that process is you're very conscious of what you're doing. You're going, I need to spend 2 hours on that report. I've got to pick it up and move it. Where am I going to spend that 2 hours? Where am I going to put it? Because I do need to spend it somewhere. So where am I going to put it now? Is it somewhere this week, or is it next week, or where am I going to put it? So that's how I want you to think about it. So in terms of a time frame for this one, it's by next week. If you're not doing it this week, well, then certainly by next week, you need to have thought about where you're going to put it and where it's going to go. To give you another example of this one, I put into my diary my family's birthdays, because even though I know exactly what their birth date is, if I'm looking at my calendar and planning on when I'm going to travel interstate to deliver training or commit to some certain things, my brain is in work mode, not personal mode. And I don't register that the date is actually a birth date for a significant family member. So I actually hold space in the evening, because we normally have dinner together for birthdays. I hold that space. So it's very visual and clear to me. Don't book out that time or that space. You've got to hold space for that very important, but not urgent yet, activity and event. Does that all make sense? Hope that makes sense. And let me know if you've got any questions around that. This one here, I want you to think about this when normally what happens with this is it's important for somebody else. It's not necessarily important to you. It's not important that you do it, but it has a very specific time frame around it. So this is where you have to it can be meetings, it can be responding to emails. The D word here is delegate. We want to delegate this to somebody else. We either want to delegate it to a tool or we want to delegate it to a person. So to give you an example, if a client reaches out to me and wants some information or wants me to provide them with something, I want to respond in a timely manner. If it's not an automated process within my system, it's my assistant, Tame, who's assisting me. Right now, if my phone rings, I'm not answering it. It's important that my business phone gets answered, right? But it needs to be answered, but it's not me. It's my message bank that's doing it. If I'm away from my desk and an email comes in, I need to let someone know straight away that I'm actually away delivering training and I can't attend to their email. But I'm not sending it. It's an autoresponder that's doing it. So I'm either using a person or some tools to do very time-specific work for me, but it's not me that's having to do it. It's important, but it's not important to me to do that. It's time-specific. I was working with a real estate agent who locally who was really time poor, and he worked on commission only. And based on his commission, we worked out roughly what an hourly rate might be for him in terms of how much money he typically earns in a year, how much time he spends to make those sales. And we came up with some figure. It was something like, let's say, $150 an hour. And one of the things that he had to do that was urgent was to go and get the keys cut from the house that he was selling. Pick up the keys, get the keys cut, label those keys, put them in the key safe at work, and then return the keys to the client. And he needed to do that really quickly to get the sales process happening. So it's quite urgent. And I said to him, is there somebody else in this town you could pay less than 150 hours to do that task for you? Because that's turnaround, that's probably about a 2-hour activity. That's costing you $300 for you to do that task. Is there someone cheaper that can do that? And he goes, I'm sure there is. It's like, well, you're the most expensive administrative assistant I know. So Dame, my assistant, sorry, I'm going to pick on her. If we run out of time to do something, I will say and I have to do it, I will then say to Dame, that task cost this much money, which is my hourly rate, as opposed to how much I pay her, because Dame is making me more efficient and more cost effective because I can charge more for my time than I do for her time to get tasks done. Does that make sense? And more, we're finding ways to be able to delegate to people so that we can capitalize on that productivity. And if we talk about a time frame, if you think about it, when you get an email, ideally you want to be responding to them within the week as much as you can. If you're getting a phone call, within the next couple of days. So the time frame for this one should be this week. We need to get back to those people sometime this week. Then we've got the things that are not urgent and not important. Now, the theory with this one is that the D word here is delete. We want to get rid of them, right? They're not helpful. They're not useful. But I will say, David Allen says there are some things that we have in our environment that we don't want to let go of. They are things that we will do someday, maybe. They're good ideas. They're things that could be useful, but right now they're not a high priority. I like to think of these things as the rabbit warren. So something comes into your space and you go, oh, that's really interesting. And you end up watching videos, reading it, researching it, following all the links. And the next thing you know, you go, oh my God, I've just wasted 2 hours looking at this thing, which I really don't need to be doing right now. But you didn't want to let it go because it was so interesting, so useful, and potentially valuable that you didn't want to let it go because you thought you might lose it. So David Allen talks about having a place where you put these things and setting a time where you go and look at them. So it can be the rainy day ideas, the back burner ideas. I know with my team, we try and stockpile our marketing ideas. My business partner is constantly sending me little videos and messages going, oh, look at this. Oh, look at this tool. And I get easily distracted. But I try and park those into a place and then set aside a time, maybe once a month or every couple of months, where I go and open up that basket of what are those rainy day ideas. So there's a lot of people that I work with that I go, this is great, but I just don't have the time right now, but I don't want to let this go. So I would suggest that you just need to delete it out of your immediate focus and your attention and have a folder or a box or a place where you put those great ideas. So the time frame, that's going to be relative to you. It could be this month or this quarter, whatever it is. So let's just go through, I'll go through all of the D words that sit within that quadrant first. If it's urgent and important, you need to do it. That's that crisis. If it's really important, doesn't need to be done just yet, we want to hold space in the future for it. We want to defer it. If it's really time specific, but it's not something you need to do, you have to do, can a tool, can a person do some of that work for you? And this is what I'm going to show you with Microsoft is some tools that can do this for you. And then the last one is if it's not urgent and it's not important, we need to delete it out of our focus and attention space. Now, if we look at time frames, today or tomorrow is the crisis stuff. You should have that written in that quadrant. If it's important but not yet urgent, by next week, you need to have made a decision of when you're going to attend to it. Those things that are really timely, but not necessarily important, sometime this week. And as I said, this time's going to be relevant to you. So I want you to start thinking about what are the tasks that sit within each of these quadrants. So these are some examples that I've mentioned to you. Hopefully you've written some down. What sits in this is deadlines, emergencies, and crisis is the other one I've said, which is kind of emergencies is the same, similar sort of thing. Projects, reports, applications, those relationships. You can see I've got in here sport as well. For me, that's health or well-being. It is not something I absolutely love, going to the gym or doing fitness, but I know it's incredibly important. So I absolutely have to hold space for that. Otherwise, I'll work through it. I absolutely have to try and prioritize that and go, stop, go and do some exercise, go and get a massage. So that's why it sits in that quadrant. Things that are going to interrupt you and disrupt you because they're urgent, but you're, oh, this isn't really, I've got better things to do with my time right now. Somebody else's needs, meetings, those kind of things. And whatever's going to take you down a rabbit warren. You can see these are mine, but what are those things that will take you down a rabbit warren and pull you away from what you should be doing? The bright, shiny object kind of things. They're the things that sit within that quadrant. Does anyone that's watching the live right now have any questions? You're welcome to open up your mic if you want to. I'm going to show you how to practically apply this in a minute. You can type anything in the chat or you can ask a question if you want to. Yeah, I'm going to keep going. But you're welcome to open your mic anytime or pop something in the chat. Okay, so what I want to show you is how do you practically apply this into Microsoft Outlook. Now, anything that I'm showing you, if you've got a Gmail account at home, the same theories apply there as well. The first thing you want to do is turn off these little pop-up alerts that appear. Does anybody have those? You can type a yes into your chat if you have those popping up. Oh, Marky, turn them off. I want you to turn those off because Thank you. She said, I will. Because every time those pop up, you are having to make a decision. Oh, look at that. There's a little alert. What is that? Is that important? Is that not important? Do I need to attend it? Oh, I'm curious. What is that? Do I look at that? No, I really don't need to. See, well, that's what goes through your brain when that little pop-up appears, and so many of them appear. You kind of try and switch off, but sometimes they capture your attention. And here's the thing, what the research shows again in terms of disruption. Whatever task you are currently doing, if you are interrupted, it will take you 3 times as long to complete that task than if you weren't interrupted. So, for example, if an email you were writing was only going to take you a minute, that distraction, that little pop-up for you to go and focus on it and then come back and go, now, where was I? That email is now going to take you 3 minutes. So you can see already, just by turning off that alert, I'm already saving you a mass amount of time in terms of your increased productivity, okay? So that's the easiest thing, one of the simplest things that you can do right now. Now, the other thing I'm going to show you is how do we defer these tasks? What's the place where we put them to be able to go and look at them later on and have them appear to us in a timely manner? There is a feature within Microsoft Outlook called a flagging feature. Does anyone use flags? You can type in a yes or a no if you currently use flags. In Gmail, there's something a little bit different in terms of how you flag them, but I am just focusing on Microsoft today. Most people will use flags just to highlight emails. So when they're scrolling up and down, they're looking for those flags. What a lot of people don't realize is that flagging feature actually enables you to curate a list of things you need to action. Remember I said to you at the beginning, you want to be able to separate out the things that are actionable from the things that aren't. Simply by putting a flag on your email means that you have at your fingertips a curated list of just the things you need to action. There is a little icon within Microsoft Outlook called Task, and I'll show you where that is in just a moment. So it creates a curated list of everything that you've flagged, everything that you've put a flag on. So you can go and look at that task list and you will see what it is that you need to action and not seeing all the other things that distract you. You're also able to prioritize those on the conveyor belt. There's these flags up here, which means if I'm clicking on these emails, I can quickly reprioritize them. You'll notice that matrix I showed you before, which is also called, they call it the that prioritization quadrant. They call that the Eisenhower matrix. So it's also referred to in Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, sometimes called the urgent important matrix. So those dates, those timeframes I showed you, they're applied right here. The theory is applied within Outlook. And I think a lot of tools, task management tools, have some way for you to quickly reprioritize things. So that conveyor belt, you're going, yeah, throw it down the conveyor belt, have it come back to me later. This is your conveyor belt. It's one place where everything is being prioritized. Now you'll notice that there's these different little icons here. You can put flags onto contacts in your contact list. You can create your own little tasks. So it doesn't even have to be emails. One of my clients had a big notebook full of tasks in there, and I said to her, I want you to take them out of your notebook and put them into this task list here. So this is your conveyor belt where you can just get changing your habit rather than looking up and down your emails. What do I need to do? What do I need to do? You actually go into this curated list of tasks that are prioritized on a conveyor belt. And it's really powerful and so simple. And most people don't know it's there. So this is the little button where you would click to be able to add that task, taking it out of your notebook and adding it to the conveyor belt. You can see this one here. It says, use this to create a blog about women working rural and resilience. So if I clicked on that, I can't show you here because it's a screenshot, but if I clicked on that in the actual notes section, it'd have the URL. So, it's not an email, it's something I want to do. That might be a someday maybe thing. And these are the buttons there that you're clicking to be able to reprioritize those. I'm going to show you now. I think this is a video which will demonstrate to you. I'm actually recording myself prioritizing my emails. This is real. This is my inbox, my task list, and I'm actually prioritizing my emails. If you want to use this feature, you can find it here. If for any reason you can't see that icon, some of you might have an older version of Outlook where it appears down the bottom, but it's the clipboard. If you can't see that, please just send me a message. I will give you a little video to show you why it's there. This is in the standard traditional format for Outlook. Some people have clicked on this button here at some point, or they're using the newer version of Outlook. This takes you to a cloud version, which is not as fantastic. Let me just say that. I like the traditional one because it's one conveyor belt and it keeps it really simple. So I'm just going to show you in this video how quickly you can see how quickly I'm processing my tasks and I'm not overhandling them. I'm just doing them once. So I'm pausing sometimes because I'm thinking about it, but I'm in real time. This is me prioritizing my task list. I'm going, what am I going to do next week? What do I need to do tomorrow? Everything that is red is overdue. I should have done it. I said that I wanted to do it by the end of the week. This is probably a Monday morning. Everything I said I wanted to do last week that I didn't do, I said, yeah, sometime this week, sometime this week, sometime this week. Some of those things are now urgent. They've moved in the triage process. They're becoming a little bit more urgent. So I'm saying, yep, I've got to do this today. Got to do this today. Well, looks like I had a few things I had to do that day. Some I'm going, yep, wish list this week. And you can see also that what I'm clicking on the right-hand side is some of the categories as well, which I'll explain to you later on. See how quickly I'm processing it, and I'm making that decision once. I'm just handling it once. I'm not going into my inbox going, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? What do I need to do? Going and doing it. What do I need to do? What do I need to do? What do I need to do? I'm just making the decision once. What am I going to do today? What am I going to do tomorrow? What am I going to do this week? I'm making that decision once. Okay. So no shame, no judgment here. I want to know how many people have a inbox that looks like this with lots of folders. You can type a yes in the chat if you have an inbox that looks like this, lots and lots of folders. You do, Margie. Most people do. Yep, really, really common. Nothing wrong with what you're doing. Very common. I want to explain to you now the QWERTY theory. I don't know if anyone's heard of the QWERTY keyboard theory. So if I hold up my keyboard, this keyboard that we all use, most of us use it, is called the QWERTY keyboard. And it's called the QWERTY keyboard because that top line writes out the word QWERTY. When we first started using typewriters, when they were first invented, they had these arms that popped out to punch letters on the page, and they used to get locked up. They'd jar up. So the inventors of typewriters studied the most commonly used letters and those letters that used to perform together, and they separated them out on the keyboard to slow the typist down. Well, we don't use typewriters anymore, but we still use a QWERTY keyboard. So the thing about emails and email management is that these folders, right? Traditionally, when I entered the workforce, we used to get letters in the mail for business. We used to get letters on a fax machine. We'd get a piece of paper. We'd open up a filing cabinet and decide which folder that piece of paper would go into. Sometimes we'd make a duplicate, we'd copy it or carbon copies, but normally that piece of paper had one home. So what we've got here is a bit like the QWERTY keyboard. We don't have a filing cabinet anymore, but we're still applying that same thinking and that methodology. One email must have one home. Where is it going to live? But we're operating in a digital space now, which means that we can think about that one email in different ways. And this is how I use categories in Microsoft Outlook to shift the way I focus in on things. I talk about helicoptering in. So sometimes you've got a whole heap of tasks that you need to do in a day, but someone says to you and comes to you and says, okay, what have we got on the table for project X? Or what are all the things that we need to think about for this client? Or for my team, it's like, let's just focus in on all the tasks that relate to the webinar that we're doing. Have we done everything? Where are we at with those things? We can kind of helicopter in based on that category rather than regardless of when it's due. So these are the kind of things that the labels people normally give on folders. They might think about it in the context of who, like, is it the client? Is it the boss? It could be personal things. It could be community groups or associations that you're a part of. So they're the who kind of folders. Then we've got the time frame. Is it urgent? Is it when possible? Am I waiting on somebody? I'm waiting to hear back from someone. It's those kind of time frames. Or it could be related to specific projects or events that we're working on. So here's the thing, by using categories, we can apply more than one category to an email. So that one email doesn't have to have one folder that it lives in. They can all have that category attached to it. This will make more sense in a moment. So how I work, rather than having lots and lots and lots of folders, I have 3, well, 4 if you include my inbox. I just have that. And this is where I'd start to freak people out. Normally they go, what? I can't get rid of all my folders, but I use categories instead of folders. If your inbox was paper, it probably would look like that. And you got little Post-it notes or tags hanging off it, which are the flags, but it's all based on the order that you received it, right? And you look at it and put it back in the box. What we want to do is be able to process things. We want to separate them out into what's actionable, what's something that I need to archive. So I don't need to throw it away, but I don't need to action it. I just need to hold it. And what are those things that aren't necessarily actionable, but someday maybe I would like to go and look at them and read them, like industry newsletters or useful information. Doesn't really have a time frame, but you need to eyeball it at some point. So I simply use the categories feature. So you can see this is my old inbox, but I still apply the same system. I just have 3 folders. And instead of lots and lots of folders, I have lots and lots of categories to be able to decide where those things live and to shift my perspective on how I'm looking at them at any particular time. So I then automate some of that prioritization. So I create some buttons in my system to flag an email, to give it a category, and to move it into the right folder, whether it's an action folder, archive folder, or read folder. So these are my non-actionable buttons that I create, a read button and an archive button. And then these are the ones that are actionable. So these are categories that I'm also applying to the emails. The buttons that I'm using, this is a feature that you can use in Outlook, is called quick steps. So basically what that means is when I press this button, it's going to do about 4 or 5 things for me. So if I press this button, action urgent, what will happen is it will categorize the email as action urgent. It will flag it for me to do today. So it'll be on my task list. It'll move it to my action folder, which is a holding space of all that's separating out those things. It's a holding bay for all the actionable things. It'll mark it as read because I've read it, right? So it's doing 4 things. There's one here, this one here. When I press that button, categorizes it as a receipt, moves it to my archive, marks it as read, clears any flags on it for me, and forwards it to my accounting system. 5 things, 1 button. So I'm automating the process. Remember, I said to you, we either want to delegate or delegate something to a person or a tool. This is kind of like what this is doing. This is where you say, I need to look at it first before I decide what needs to be done with it. But we can speed things up even more. Some of you may or may not be familiar with the rules feature within Outlook. This is great because it's basically saying, hand on heart, every time that email comes in, I know I want to do the same thing over and over. For example, every time an email comes from my assistant, Tame, it will have the category executive assistant, right? So no matter where that email goes, the category's already there. And I didn't even have to use any brain power to make a decision about that. It's already done for me. 1 decision quota I don't have to use up. If I get emails that come from my PayPal, for example, I have a business PayPal account. I don't need to see all of those emails. I don't want to unsubscribe. I don't want to throw them away, but they don't have to sit in my inbox. They just need to park somewhere so that I can look at them if I need to. So they get categorized finance. They also get categorized PayPal. They get moved to my read folder. And they probably have markers read as well. So all of those emails automatically are already taken out of my inbox, and they're not sitting in my inbox, but the filing's done, they're separated, and they're processed. So I'm constantly creating new rules all the time to say, do this thing with this stuff that comes in. Most of it is just applying a category. So half the filing is already done for me, because as that email moves through the triage, that category is there with it, and the filing is done. Half the filing is done. And like I said, you can apply more than 1 category. So this is the simple system that I implement with my email management. So simple. And this is the methodology that David Allen talks about. I actually rarely go into folders to look for work to do. Rarely. I look at my inbox in terms of what's come in and what do I need to process. After all the rules have done their work, what's left? And I use those quick step buttons to make a decision about whether I need to action something or not, and what kind of action in terms of that quadrant. Where is it urgent? Is it when possible? And then I go to my task list to go, what do I need to do? You notice I'm not going into any folders, and I'm only processing it once. I'm not over handling it. So you can see how easy it is for me to save time for people in terms of that 2 hours a day. A little bit here, a little bit there, look at that pop up, go there, scan up and down the emails. It's only a minute here or there, but like a drip out of a leaky tap into a bucket. Within an hour, you've filled up a bucket of water. A minute here, a minute there, it all adds up to 2 hours of wasted time you did not need to waste by over processing and over handling your emails. So I only check my emails about 3 or 4 times a day. I had one client where I showed them this system. They're going, something's wrong. Something's wrong. I must have forgotten something. It's like, no, you're actually on top of everything, because they're always operating from behind, always operating in that emergency situation, right? Putting out fires rather than actually being ahead of things and going, yeah, I know what I need to do. And it felt really weird for her. I've got an empty inbox. Surely not. You have. You've processed it. And I can typically get people to an inbox 0 within normally about 4 weeks. Some people even quicker. And I'm only checking my emails about 3 or 4 times a day. I'm not always in there. And so really you just have to remember that this is your focus, right? Of how you focus your attention, what approach you need to be taking to things. So that's the technical side of stuff. I want to be able to give you some things that you can take away from today as well, some things that you can utilize. So anyone watching this recording or anyone who's in the session now, you will get an email afterwards to be able to book in a session with me. I obviously can't go through all the whole detail, but I can give you some advice and some direction in terms of what you can do and what might be the next steps for you. We do have another webinar coming up, which is really, really popular, which is being able to transform your stress into a source of strength, making your stress work for you. So you go from being absolutely smashed to smashing it, to being able to achieve some goals. Cecilia is delivering this. Cecilia has recently partnered with the Himwood Institute to be able to deliver some of this training. And she has a wealth of knowledge and experience that she can apply into this training as well. Dame's just, anyone watching in the live, Dame's just dropped a link to that webinar, and it will be in an email. Cecilia, do you want to open up your mic and say a quick hello to people watching the recording, people that are live?
Yeah, thanks, Barb. Yeah, I'm really excited about this upcoming webinar, and I really want people to understand that stress management can be a tool. And I love all the new science around stress, and it doesn't have to be a sentence. In fact, with just a few small tweaks that we'll be sharing, we can completely turn stress around and have it work in our favor. I love the resilience tools that this webinar shares, and I'm so excited about to have an opportunity to deliver this content, which you have beautifully prepared, and the Hinwood Institute has been providing. But I'm going to add a few more tools that I have cultivated over the years, and of course, open it up for people to share what their number one stress management techniques are. I mean, everyone has their own top strategy that has that is a winner that works, and you know how great it is for all of us to share some of our winning techniques. So I look forward to it, and I know the date is there somewhere, so I'll let you share that. I'm still working with the time zones and the time difference, so I won't name the date in case I get it wrong.
I'm the same. I can't remember off the top of my head, but if you click on the link, I think it's in, yeah, I'm not going to say. I'm not going to say in case I get it wrong. But we always do have free webinars coming up every month, so that people can, at least every month, so that people can tap into the resources and the knowledge. And as you like this one, there's always something that we've got to share. If you want to apply, I've rushed through the theory and the technology. Thank you, Cecilia, by the way. I didn't say thank you. If you want to go through that system and be able to look at how you can apply that, I do have a program. It's 90 days of implementing all those systems and having that apply for you. So going through that program with me one by one, one-on-one with you, I will help you adopt and apply this and help you get through some of those challenges. So I'm just going to run through what that entails. So you, in doing this with me, you get that one-on-one with me. I'll get you to inbox 0. I'd love to say I'd guarantee you 10 hours back in the week, but my business partner says, oh, let's be careful. I reckon I can get you for at least 4 hours back in your week, guaranteed. And I'm going to do that by showing you how to organize your actionable and non-actionable items. I've given you some of the theory behind that. How I'm going to reduce, you can see how I'm going to help you reduce how much you're handling your emails, and how to declutter. The clutter is what takes our focus. I'm going to show you how to be more effective in decluttering and make that happen really quickly, really, really quickly. And look at those prioritization techniques. So I've given you some general theory with what I've shown you, but if I'm working one-on-one with you, I'm going to be able to make that far more customized to 208 hours a year, Cecilia just said. Yeah, it works out to about 12 weeks, worked out to about 12 weeks a year. That's your double your annual leave for most people in Australia. Mind-blowing. this is a really simple system to adopt. We're going to show how to increase your focus and attention. Remember I said to you that client that went, oh my God, there's got to be something. It's like, no, you're actually on top of it. You're actually out on top. You will feel so energized. Remember I said to you at the beginning, all those decisions and things at the end of the day going, oh, I'm exhausted. And what have I actually achieved? What have I done today? You won't feel like that because you will be powering through your tasks and you're going to be less reactive and far more proactive, far more planning. And this is where I find people are become more assertive as well, because you have in front of you the data that says you can actually see the conveyor belt. You can see those icebergs coming for you. So you're able to say to those people around you, I need this to happen. You're going to be far more professional and responsive with your stakeholders. I'm going to show you how to set up those automated features, your response times to things, so you can see and also be able to deal with those emergencies as well. So if you want to take advantage of that, Dame, if you got that link, you can drop in the chat for if you want to purchase that one-on-one program, that one-on-one coaching. There is a link there for that if you want that. I do have a limit, obviously, because it's one-on-one, of how many people I can work with. But if you don't want to do the one-on-one coaching for whatever reason, or if you want to look at some other options, there is also a self-directed learning course. So that course is $500. Remember, all of this too is tax deductible. You can claim this through because it's professional development. So just remember that you can do that. The course is just self-directed learning, so you follow step by step, but it's based on the workshops that I deliver, on the coaching. It comes with a manual, and you do have the opportunity to book in a session with me if you've got any questions about applying that self-directed learning. So you can work more at your own pace. It does require a bit of self-discipline. So that's the only challenge always with these things. And if you've got any questions about anything, or you want to ask about any of this stuff, or you want to know about any more tips or tricks or things that are coming up, you're welcome to connect with me in social media. I was just thinking, my brain just had a little bit of a brain fart then, Dame, because I was thinking we could have also dropped in there the link for booking a call. But Dame, if you're watching the recording, don't worry. The links are just there for the convenience of people watching live. If you're watching the recording, you will get an email with all these links of all these things that I've mentioned. So I'll send you an email with a link where you can book a one-on-one with me, just a one-off for free, to be able to ask me any questions or come up with a strategy. A link to our next free webinar. We give away so much free stuff, don't we? A link to where you can purchase one-on-one coaching program with me, or if you want to get the online self-directed training, there'll be a link for that. So 4 links will come out in an email for anyone that's watching the recording. For anyone that's here right now, any questions? Dame, Maggie, Cecilia?
I'd just like to just talk a little bit about like the number of hours this can help save. I mean, we worked out the numbers. I mean, it's 4 hours a week easily. It could be more. But I'm just so cognizant of like the peace of mind that you get. So that has no price tag. I mean, the hours, great. Like if I were to say to you, hey, you know, how would you like an extra 200 hours? You know, what could you do with an extra 200 hours in your calendar? And just the peace and the possibilities and the creativity around that. That's just that's been going through my mind as you're talking about it.
That's why I showed that video at the beginning of those people that went, I can just breathe. I can take a breath, and feel less, use your brain for that beautiful machine that it is. Yeah.
What a
Margie's
gift
just,
this is.
yeah, it really made, and for me, when I discovered this system, it was because I was working with an entrepreneur who wanted to save money by getting me to do the job of 3 people. And because I'm a very committed and diligent person, I wanted to perform well, but I was so stressed. So stressed. Like I actually thought I was having a heart attack at one point, but it was all the muscles in my chest contracting and having a spasm because I was so stressed. And so my mind, I was like, I have got to, because I'm passionate about creating order out of chaos and making sense of things. It's like, I have got to find a solution to make this easier. And that's where I discovered this methodology and David Allen and refining all of these industry experts on how to make things work. Margie's just commented that she can't find that task button on her emails either. So, Margie, what I would suggest you do is if you want to book in a time with me, I can just help you navigate on your email account where all of those things are that I showed you. I'd be more than happy to do that if you want to do that and how to set. I won't be able to go into great detail about how to set things up, but I can just show you where they're located, so you can have a go if you want to. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Cecilia. Thanks, Margie. Thanks, Dame, for being here. My beautiful, trusty assistant. When the machines can't do it, Dame's got to do it for me. And Cecilia, I will say too, when Cecilia first started working, and people say to me, oh my goodness, where do you find the time? It's because I've got these systems in place that make it easier. So I am more productive and get more things done because I've got the systems in place.
Oh, yeah. Your systems are beautiful, Barb.
Thank you. Thanks, Margie, for participating. If there's no more questions, I'm going to sign off. If you're watching the recording, please feel free to reach out. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Thank you, Barb.
Thanks. See you. Bye. Oops, stop the recording.